Building trust in a relationship is a huge topic today, and we're going to see how that correlates with what A Course in Miracles calls the Christ mind. And I want to bring up again mindfulness meditation techniques and why it's so important and why I urge that you learn how to do mindfulness meditation. And let's talk deeply about trust in love and a little bit on women's life confidence. Hey everyone, James Nussbaumer, and good morning and welcome to another episode of For a Better Life podcast. It's bright and early in a humid, muggy day where I'm at here in Northeast Ohio, and it's bright and early in the morning, and the town is waking up for this Labor Day weekend. September 2nd is today, and it's going to be a hot, muggy weekend here. You might hear some Harley Davidsons going by in the background because I heard that they're at sunrise up driving through town on a Labor Day ride, so to speak, with a gang of nice, friendly Harley drivers. And they are friendly because I have a good friend that's a Harley rider and rides in groups, and there's a lot of professionals in there too. But let's get back to building trust in a relationship. And before I get going, I want to say that in my mastermind group, two of my members, Donald and Ivory of Anaheim, California, they say they've been married 32 years as of last week. And first marriage for both of them. I think that's just great. And they say they've been happily married all the way through. Maybe a few arguments, but never any serious spats. And that is so cool to hear. So Donald and Ivory wanted to know, they had messaged in about, can you explain about trust in relationships and how that correlates with what the Course in Miracles teaches as the Christ mind? Because for those of you that are new to this podcast, know that much of this podcast is to get underneath and deep in and understand what the Course in Miracles is trying to teach us. Because, I'm quite involved in my studies and my writings from the Course in Miracles, but it's very in-depth and deep content. And it's that way because it's psychotherapy for the mind. In the normal humanistic way we think, it's hard to understand the text of A Course in Miracles. So anyways, I'm going to explain that, how the Christ mind comes into where we can build trust in relationships. Building trust in a relationship can be natural and an easy thing to do if you trust in love. Now, bear with me, but think about that first as I sip on my morning cup of Maxwell House, because I have to have this before I get going. But I promise you this will be enlightening, so please bear with me. One sip. I better take another sip here before I start talking. Okay. I just love that smell of fresh coffee in the morning. But building trust in a relationship, and it should be natural, and it can be. But did you ever stop to think how you may trust in love, real love? Yes, it's how alert you are to your own heart. When the voice for God, so to speak, that I'm going to mention here, not the voice of God, the voice for God, which is within you, not somewhere out there in the clouds calling down to you. No, the voice for God is already within you, within your mind, within you. And the voice for God calls on your brother or your sister, brother/sister, I say in the writings of my books, meaning the oneness connection we have of mind to one another. That connection is your brother/sister. Or when you see this holiness in the voice that answers your call. Now, what I mean by that, and I threw that at you to be a little deep because I'm hoping to keep you on your toes a little bit, but I won't put you into too deep of water. And if you do go into deep water, don't worry, I'll be there as a lifeguard to rescue you, okay, if that makes sense. But it's why it is highly suggested that I regularly practice mindfulness meditation, and I urge that you learn how to do some form of mindfulness meditation. Now, keep in mind, if you're at YouTube listening to that, there's going to be a link in the description area down below in this particular podcast on more on mending a relationship, because many people listening to this today are thinking about mending a relationship, or they might have a great relationship, but they want to know how to keep it that way. And also, if you're at YouTube, let's get this out of the way first. Also, further down, you might have to scroll down a little bit in the description area. There will be a link to the written version that I've updated of this article, the written version of this podcast, which is a blog article that is at my website. The link to that blog article you can click on, and it will take you to my safe website. And from there, you will have many opportunities to find out mindfulness meditation techniques and more on maximizing your potential and all sorts of good things, and plenty of good, easy reading to enlighten you. So let's get back and why it is that I suggest to regularly practice mindfulness meditation for anything that we're up against in life. But in book 1 of my series called The Master of Everything, A Story of Mankind in the World of Illusion We Call Life, I talk more about, notice that I say the voice for God and not of God. The voice for God is within you. So how many times have you seen the different side of an individual whom others have condemned? You know what I'm talking about. The individual who others say, he's no good, she's no good, stay away from him or her. But you're seeing a different side than what people are warning you against. And, you know what I'm saying there, because that happens quite a bit, especially even in our growing up years in school, when we're all kind of afraid of each other and we're all judging each other as school kids. But that carries into our adulthood as well. So what would happen if you opened the door to allow trust and love to pour into you and outward toward that person that everyone else is condemning? Well, that different side that others could not see in him or her, but that you can see, is the Christ within both of you. That what you are seeing in that person and how they experience you seeing them lovingly that way, and there's a mutual respect towards each other, that's the Christ within you as one that is connecting. Wow, isn't that so simple? Or we can simply call this whole picture, if you want, the face of Christ. That connection that you both feel, even though someone else condemned them, and that person feels they like you because you're liking them, and it's real and it's sincere and it's honest, where there's no judgment and condemnation involved, no fear and doubt. All the worry of what others have said is cast out. That interconnectedness that you have towards that so-called bad person that everyone condemned, and that person that you're connecting with, that's the Christ in you and that person. Wow, while I was in prison for 8 long years, for those of you that know my story, know the whole deal. And if you don't know my story, in my first book that I just mentioned, The Master of Everything, I detail a lot of experiences of in prison. But a lot of times in prison, when I was in there with people doing life sentences for ungodly, terrible crimes, there was many times where I'd be face to face with someone, and that connection was there. We both experienced it, regardless of other things that may have happened. And that's the Christ that's in all of us connecting. Does that make sense to you who are listening to me? Can you hear me? Really hear me and understand that, what I'm saying? Can you? Can you? Because if you can, guess what? That's Christ. That's the Christ in you and I as one, not two separate Christs, the Christ mind that we share. And that's what may have you on the end of your seat right now. That may is what you are intently listening to me right now, because we are connected by the Christ mind. And that's all that Christ means. It's not an individual, not a person. Jesus was here to walk this earth, and people called him the Christ, but people didn't really understand what that meant in those days. It's the oneness that we all have together. And if you think about the teachings of Jesus and the people that wrote about him in the New Testament of the Bible, you'll come to see that that makes so much sense. Or we can simply say the whole picture of Christ when you're reading those stories in the New Testament that were written, and you can see that face of Christ more clearly within yourself as you're thinking about everything that the Bible tells us. So even your reactions to living and loving other or different sides to people is what A Course in Miracles calls the sonship, which basically is the Christ. So if you're reading A Course in Miracles and you're running into the term the sonship versus the Christ mind, it basically is the same, but the sonship just means it's more of a collectiveness of all of us together as brother, collectively / sisters, combined as humans that understand or glimpsing that wholeness of Christ. But the Christ mind is actually the beyond the body part that actually knows that we are all at one. And the humanistic side of it is out of the picture. So the Christ mind is just the deeper at oneness, wholeness, where the sonship is more reflecting a collectiveness of us together that are trying as humans to understand that. So the understanding of God, which the average person accepts through belief or reasoning, is so far removed, though, don't you think, from true understanding that it just cannot be called inner knowledge because it's perceived as somewhere out there. Like we always think our salvation someday out there, away from the present now, but then also out there, away from us. That's where it waits for us. No, it's here and now. So true knowledge does not consist of the constructions or perception of beliefs that have been passed on to us by society who never really knew themselves and doubted and feared themselves, and most likely passed along their own fears and doubts that we built images on. Another sip of coffee, please. So as I sipped on that cup of coffee, I hope you thought about all that's been passed down to us, that we, and nothing wrong, because people in the past have meant to, well-intended, meant to pass on down great things to us. But as the generations are coming by in the dream of life, time and space, we're becoming more awakened, which means when we're becoming more awakened, we're opening our eyes more to real knowledge rather than projections. But the only way we could get to the real knowledge is from the projections of the people in the past, to where we kind of open our eyes and say, well, wait a minute, there's got to be more to this than that. So it opened the door for, just as now as we're talking today, through the Christ mind with each of us, we're opening the door for 50, 100 years from now, whatever, for others to expand on these thoughts of oneness and wholeness. It can only be obtained, though, by ripened experience. And let me tell you, those 8 long years I spent in a state penitentiary over that foolish securities violation was a ripened experience, believe me. But it was also very fruitful, because that's where my books were born and where I would write every single day. By hand, by the way, no computer in prison, barely a typewriter, and it was better situation for me just to handwrite. But my point is when I say ripened experience, does not necessarily mean, that because you're older in age and you've got all these experiences behind you. No, a 21-year-old can have a ripened experience. a junior middle school football player or high school football player. I bring that up because I played football. Can have a ripened experience for the next season to learn and move on. So I think you get my drift there, but it can only be obtained by how you trust in love, the love that's within you, not love for a physical body, the love that's within you for what you're doing, for what you're seeing in another individual, and building trust on that. And that's what Jesus was here to say when he said, we're really built on a foundation of solid rock, not sand. And you know that story in the New Testament. Go read it again. Go look it up and take that lesson that I'm giving you today to that New Testament reading where Jesus talked about build your house on rock rather than sand. Or the two brothers, one brother built his on rock and another on sand. But in book 2 of the series called Mastering Your Own Spiritual Freedom, and I titled it that way on purpose, Mastering Your Own Spiritual Freedom is what the reason I titled it that way is because rather than what others prescribe for you. Okay, so in book 2, Mastering Your Own Spiritual Freedom, we go deep into true knowledge and find out how true knowledge grows and find out how and why it ripens inside of you, becoming more real as you participate in only and nothing other than pure truth and trust in love until there is no more to absorb, but it only flows between you and your mate. For example, Donald and Ivory of Anaheim, California, who had written in so lovingly telling me that they've been together for 32 years. Do you see what I'm saying there about the Christ mind, Donald and Ivory? You have learned to let the love flow between each other, and it's constantly flowing because it's eternal. Doesn't that kind of thing just send chills up your bone in happiness and bliss? Wow, it sure does to me. And Donald and Ivory, you are a great example here for all of us who have ever struggled in relationships before. Yes, and I mean overcoming life challenges as well as relationships, such as how I had to endure that prison confinement. But another sip of coffee, please. So, but before I continue, let me say that I did another article about getting over those damn challenges, I want to say, those doggone damn challenges in life, and I hope it helps. And at my website, you can go to jamesnussbaumers.com/ just put in challenges in life, and I've got several articles on that. So I hope that you'll check out my blog, because I've got many, many, many hundreds and hundreds of articles that I've written myself. I'm the author of every single article at my website. But before I continue and get ready to close, let me say that I did another article too on devotional rituals followed in religions do not necessarily lead you to true inner travel, which constitutes a true journey and trust and love, because for the most part, they are mechanical observations, these rituals that are performed by religions. Nothing wrong with that. I was raised a Catholic, a lot of rituals and ceremonies and things like that in the Catholic Mass, and nothing wrong with that. So for those of you listening in, I'm not going there as a judgment against that. But let me finish here. The devotional rituals, followed in religions can be truthful to you or non-truthful to you. So if putting on a robe or carrying around the beads or being blessed with the oils or incense in the air, if that makes you reflect, helps you to reflect the Christ in you, then that is wonderful, because you're using that physical deal of the robe you might be wearing in a ceremony, the incense, the rosary beads, or whatever it is, or for any other religions, whatever ceremonial type things that you do, that can be great when you're understanding that that thing you're doing is helping you reflect the Christ in you. Not a body, not someone who once walked the earth, the Christ. Remember, when Jesus was here, he was trying to teach us of the Christ mind. He wasn't trying to say that he was Christ and we are not. He was trying to teach us that we all are Christ beyond the body. So when next time you're involved in a ritual kind of a thing, meditation can be a ritual thing. Some people like to light candles when they meditate. Some people like to burn special oils or aerate special oils through their area they're meditating in, through an oil aerator, which is great things to do because it soothes the body and helps you to reflect. So, okay, got that out of the way. But now I'm not trying to tell you that to leave your religion. And I wanted to put that in there because religion surely can be a good foundation for understanding faith, just as mine was for me. 12 years in a Catholic education from grade school through high school. Tremendous education. The priests and the nuns back in the 60s, and then I graduated high school in the 70s. I was fortunate that I was in a good Catholic school system, that we never heard of all this nonsense that's going on today about, the sexual abuse scandals and that. I mean, I'm not saying that's nonsense that it didn't happen. I'm just saying I was fortunate that I didn't have to witness anything like that. And the nuns were liberal. They weren't, though, you hear stories of the nuns cracking you on your hands with a ruler. No, that stuff never happened. Heck, they were in the playground kicking the football around with us boys, and they would show up at our football games on Sundays, and the priests, and it was a loving community from my first grade all the way through high school. So I want to put a lid on that now and not go up and down on that any further. But the ups and downs and the ins and the outs that you experience within the congregation of your place of worship, whatever that is, can give you valuable lessons and can be a great step forward toward trust in love and building a trust in a relationship. In my early days, for example, A Course in Miracles, I struggled through the obscuring fog of mental and emotional tension, trying to understand it. Because when I first started diving into A Course in Miracles, I was in the volatile and often violent din of the cell block in prison. And let me tell you, it was violent. So, but my consciousness became one-pointed, forming a spearhead that eventually pierced through the veil, I want to say, to an inner path that seemed to be such divine knowledge to me. In other words, I had broken through. And for me, I think it took that prison confinement for me to break through in my understanding of what A Course in Miracles is all about. Even the earliest glimpses of or perceptions I was getting were great advances to the understanding and knowledge where my faith really and truly lies. A bridge was certainly being built, and I was traveling on that bridge, and my trust in love ripened as well. And this is why I suggest another article on why to never give up on hope, even if you feel life is not worth living. You can get that at my website blog too, jamesnussbaumer.com/nevergiveup. I began to become more concerned with inner realities of all life rather than their outward expression passed down to us from generations. Later, I discovered that this is how the world's most successful people learn to think and grow and operate. As the emphasis shifted from my own external to internal aspects of my life, the deepening of my conscious being and awareness was accelerated to all ends. Another sip of coffee. But nonetheless, my building trust in relationships became natural when my trust in love was embedded in me. In building trust in a relationship and maximizing my potential, by awakening more than I've ever been awakened before in my life, I began seeing and sensing more than the physical. I started to see that different side to people more and more, even in a prison cell, even in that hostile environment, deep in the rabbit hole of the prison system. I began seeing different sides to everyone, including the prison guards who like to be mean, And the prison staff, I saw a different oneness side to them. It made my time in there easier. I could see this in a gesture, such as a casual thank you, and I could sense it in eye contact or even in the look of confusion when someone was searching for the right word to answer a question I might have. I could see that they were trying to help, searching for the right word. Some even became embarrassed when realizing their own holiness had been witnessed in a brief confrontation with me. I noticed this often while they're in prison. A Course in Miracles explains this as this deep thought. It's the blood of hatred fading to let the grass grow green again. The blood of hatred that fell from the cross, that landed on the grass. It faded to let the grass grow green again. I'll repeat that. A Course in Miracles explains this by saying, the blood of hatred fading to let the grass grow green again. I became caught up with a deep awareness of myself and a deep perception of the workings of the world, and a refocusing of my consciousness occurred, which is now so far reaching for me. It's unbelievable. I'm so thrilled with bliss and filled with bliss. All of the avenues, though, and all of the avenues through which I conduct my search are radically transformed by my trust in love and my sincerity and the concentrated purpose of my efforts to live my true free will. I hope this makes sense. Before I close, please support my work. Please notice that I also recommend other authors and other life coaches and such at my website because I believe in their work, and somewhere they're recommending my books to their followers and readers or whatever. And like I like to always say, if you read all my 3 books so far that are published, with more on the way, if you would read everything I ever write in the future, I would still not be able to answer all your questions. And so I can't be an expert in everything. I love to write about what I feel inside. So when I see another author that has something that, wow, that can really turn some people on, like it's turning me on, I refer them. So please follow me on Twitter. I love Twitter. For some reason, I'm engaging well there, and Facebook as well. And please follow me on YouTube. I wish the best for you. I hope you're thinking a lot about your own life and all the natural beauty that is within you. I always like to say, but I'm going to say this in a different way today. The natural beauty within you that you know that you have, that natural beauty about you is the same natural beauty that's within me. It's the same natural beauty that's within everyone you encounter throughout your day. That natural beauty that we all share is the Christ mind. That's all that's all. I wanted to say Holy Spirit, but that's at another session coming up because we're ending here and I won't go there. But that Christ mind idea is our link to God, which is the Holy Spirit as well. And don't confuse yourself on that. That Christ mind, that idea of our inner awesomeness, all of us together. Think of all of us in this world. If we all joined with our inner awesomeness at once, wouldn't that be such a tremendous sight? That's the Christ mind. That's what the Course in Miracles is trying to teach us about Christ. That's what Jesus and so many other masters before him and after him were here to teach us. If you don't like the word, the Christ mind, because of some other religious affiliation, that's fine. You can substitute the word. Those are just letters in the American alphabet, the Christ mind. Use whatever word you want. It's the meaning behind that word. That's the love that's making you listen to me, and the love that I have for you, the love that we have for each other, that love that has no fear, has no doubt, has no judgment, that thing beyond the body that we notice in one another. That's the Christ in each of us. The best that we can do as humans is learn to tap into that as often as we can, more often than we tap into the other side which is fear and doubt and judgment. I wish the best to you. I've got to run now. I hope you enjoyed today. I think you're great, and I think you're awesome. Thank you for putting up with me for these, about 30 minutes. And my time has run out. I've got to run. Thanks again. James Nussbaumer signing off.